fraught with litigation and lawsuits over his intellectual property, about his likeness. Can somebody just take his picture, put up on a t-shirt? Can somebody project his image in a light?
September 13th, 1996, Tupac Shakur was gone. No will, no plan, just chaos.
As many as 200 unreleased songs to use here, and that's not just counting the originals that were already remixed.
And over 200 unreleased tracks locked away in the shadows. But the real bombshell, according to official police reports, the man who sold over $60 million in albums that year had just $105,000 in his bank account when he died. That's it. One of the biggest stars on the planet, basically broke. Everyone thought he was set for life, but behind the scenes, it was debt, mystery, and legal madness. Lawyers later said Tupac left behind a voluminous portfolio so massive, so overwhelming, it had never been seen before. It was so intense that his mother, Afeni Shakur, had to create a whole entertainment company just to manage what he left behind. And still, no one knew exactly what was in the vault. One single producer held 40 unreleased songs. So imagine what officials uncovered when they finally documented the entire Tupac Amaru Shakur estate. But here's the kicker. They kept the full inventory sealed for nearly 3 decades. And when Clark County finally completed the asset list back in late 1996, the results blew everyone's mind. Even with All Eyes on Me selling over 5 million copies, the cold, hard truth was this: Tupac died nearly penniless. Want more shocking facts they never told you? Subscribe to Juicy Real now and don't miss what's coming next. That so-called voluminous portfolio turned into a full-blown mystery that dragged on for nearly 30 years. According to Clark County records, Tupac only owned 2 vehicles. A 1996 BMW, the same one he was fatally shot in, and a Hummer H1. That's it. He didn't even own the Woodland Hills mansion he lived in. His Citibank checking account, it held exactly $105,000. Investigators were baffled. How could a superstar whose album All Eyes on Me debuted at #1 on Billboard, whose anthem California Love was dominating every radio station, be basically broke? Death Row Records was raking in millions, but the official estate paperwork painted a bleak picture. Financial disaster. Under California's inheritance laws, everything automatically went to Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother. But what she inherited looked more like a financial mess than a legacy. Something wasn't adding up. Industry insiders were whispering, this can't be the whole story. Then came the claims from Marion Suge Knight's Death Row Records. Tupac supposedly owed them $4.9 million. They even brought the receipts, $300,000 in hotel bills from the ultra-luxe Peninsula Beverly Hills, luxury car leases, and a whopping $16,000 per month they say they paid to support Afeni. But then came the real red flags, huge ones. Producer Johnny J. Jackson stepped forward, revealing he was sitting on unreleased master recordings for tracks like Hail Mary and Toss It Up, fully completed, Death Row produced hits, completely missing from the official estate list. Where did they go? Who took them? And why were they never counted? Stick with Juicy Real for the real story. They don't want you to hear this. Tupac's grind in the studio was the stuff of legends. At places like Can-Am Recorders, he was laying down track after track, non-stop. With that kind of insane work ethic, the estate should have been packed with hundreds of completed songs. But when the official inventory dropped in 1996, not a word about any of it. No mention of the massive archive Tupac built in studios all over LA. Something wasn't right, seriously wrong. And for nearly 3 decades, the truth stayed buried. As time passed, more and more evidence leaked out, and it became crystal clear. The original estate list had missed something huge. It wasn't just a few missing tracks. We're talking 200 unreleased songs. That's right, a full musical vault, completely untouched by the original documentation. This changed everything. Tracks like Unconditional Love, Still I Rise and Changes would later go on to make millions, but none of them were in the 1996 estate records, not even mentioned. That's not just an oversight, that's a cover-up. And then came another bombshell. Daz Dillinger dropped a revelation. He had 40 unreleased Tupac tracks in his hands. 40, including unheard collabs from the Don Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory sessions, and none of it was listed in the estate. How did something that big just disappear? Keep watching Juicy Reel for more, because what's coming next will blow the lid wide open. One producer had 40 unreleased Tupac tracks, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. Turns out the rest were scattered all over the industry. Digital Underground Shock G revealed he had early Tupac recordings from the Sons of the P era. Then came Hurt and Bad, claiming they had unreleased songs stashed from sessions at Starlight Studios. One thing became painfully clear: the official count was way off. What made it even crazier? Tupac was methodical about his craft. At Death Row Studios on Selma Avenue, he kept detailed logs of every session. Not just that, he made multiple copies of everything. He wasn't just creating, he was archiving. At spots like Larrabee Studios and Sound Factory, Pac followed a strict routine. Record a track, play it back once, then on to the next. No breaks, no waste. That obsession with output led to hundreds of completed tracks, none of which showed up in the 1996 estate files. The government had only focused on what they could see: the BMW, the Hummer, the bank accounts, some jewelry. But Tupac's real fortune? It was locked inside master tapes, sitting in studios like Conway and Can-Am, and buried in personal collections across the music game. By 2008, just 12 years after they claimed his assets were minimal, Tupac's estate was pulling in a jaw-dropping $15 million a year from posthumous drops like Are You Still Down, Remember Me, and Until the End of Time. And Afeni Shakur, she wasn't letting it slide. 20 years after his death, she launched a legal war through Amaru Entertainment, fighting to reclaim everything that was left out of that shady 1996 inventory. This story's far from over. Subscribe to Juicy Reel now, cause the secrets just keep coming. Afeni Shakur's relentless fight pulled back the curtain on just how much had been overlooked or straight up buried. But when Afeni passed away in 2016, control of the Tupac Amaru Shakur estate landed in the hands of Tom Wally from Interscope Records. This wasn't some outsider. Wally was the guy who signed Tupac back in 1991. He knew exactly how much unreleased material Tupac had cooked up, and he'd seen firsthand how little of it appeared in that shady 1996 inventory. Then came another bombshell. Billy Garland, Tupac's estranged biological father, filed a lawsuit in 1997. His case rocked the estate. Garland's paternity challenge demanded DNA testing, deep estate valuations, and uncovered clear gaps in the original asset count. What came next stunned everyone. Judge Robert Schneider awarded Garland a $1 million settlement. If the court handed over $1 million to a man who wasn't even part of Tupac's life, that could only mean one thing: the estate was worth way more than what authorities had claimed back in '96. And get this, from 1997 to 2006, Amaru Entertainment dropped 6 posthumous albums, all built on content that wasn't even listed in the official estate docs. Full projects like Are You Still Down came from material they said didn't exist. The more they dug, the more they found, and it's clear the truth about Tupac's legacy was way bigger than they ever admitted. Want to stay ahead of the lies? Hit that subscribe button on Juicy Reel. Remember Me went 4 times platinum. Still I Rise hit double platinum. Until the End of Time, another 4 times platinum smash. All of them built from material the original estate inventory claimed didn't even exist. Then came the 2013 lawsuit, a legal war that shook the industry. It was launched by Tupac's estate against Entertainment One, the company that had somehow ended up controlling parts of Death Row's catalog. This became the longest-running battle in the estate's history. Afeni Shakur herself led the charge, claiming ownership of master recordings for major tracks like To Live and Die in LA and Toss It Up. Songs that had mysteriously landed in a Canadian company's hands after they scooped up Death Row's assets in 2006. That lawsuit wasn't just about songs, it was about justice. The settlement victory proved the estate had been robbed of millions. These were priceless recordings that should have been counted back in 1996, but instead were floating in the hands of outside record labels. And then, July 2025, nearly 29 years to the day since Tupac's death, the truth exploded again. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department dropped a bombshell during their ongoing murder investigation. While digging into the case around Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the LVMPD accidentally released previously classified estate documents. Inside, proof that entire evidence lockers were holding Tupac-related materials that had never been properly logged as estate assets. Turns out Tupac's legacy was scattered across Las Vegas and Los Angeles, tucked away in storage, locked in vaults, and totally ignored in the official count. And that's just what they let us see. Don't miss what's next. Subscribe to Juicy Reel and stay locked in. The freshly unsealed files dropped a truth bomb. Multiple people have been sitting on Tupac's estate assets for decades. Books like Greg Kading's Murder Rap and documentaries like Tupac Resurrection were created using exclusive material that was never officially logged in the 1996 estate records. Then came Daz Dillinger's move. He returned unreleased tracks to Afeni Shakur, a bold gesture that showed he knew something was off. He understood the weight of what he was holding, and the fact that he worried about these materials being stolen, that spoke volumes. Daz clearly realized that Can-Am Studios and other spots were sitting on unreleased gold that the estate had never claimed. And just when it couldn't get crazier, it did. The police document release happened right as new details dropped about the Tupac Shakur Wake Me When I'm Free Museum exhibit, which launched in Los Angeles in 2022. But what the court filings exposed was shocking. Items on display, like the original handwritten lyrics for California Love and Dear Mama, had been kept hidden from Tupac's rightful beneficiaries for years. The LVMPD's ongoing investigation pulled back the curtain even further. Turns out, materials linked to Tupac weren't just misplaced, they were spread out all over the map. From Compton to Las Vegas, people had documents, recordings, and personal artifacts that should have been part of his official estate from day one. This wasn't just sloppy, it was systemic. The 1996 inventory barely scratched the surface, and it's all just starting to unravel. Stay locked in, Juicy Reel's got more where that came from. By 2025, individual unreleased Tupac tracks were selling for a jaw-dropping $250,000 each. That kind of price tag made one thing crystal clear. The estate had been sitting on millions in hidden assets, the kind that were nowhere to be found in the 1996 inventory. But these weren't just underground leaks. Every sale had to be greenlit by Tom Wally, the man running Amaru Entertainment, proving that valuable material was still resurfacing nearly 30 years later. Then in 2022, the silence shattered. Tupac's sister, Sekiwa Shakur, filed an explosive lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court that exposed the estate's deepest secrets. Her legal documents revealed exactly what authorities had found in 1996 and what had been deliberately hidden by estate executors ever since. According to Sekiwa, Tom Wally had been holding on to key items that were cataloged by police in '96 but never revealed to the family. His excuse? He claimed he was keeping them for investment purposes. But in reality, those pieces were part of Tupac's estate since the day he died and had been concealed for decades. The lawsuit laid it all out, item by item. Tupac's cars, a collection of gold plaques and music awards from Tupacalypse Now and Me Against the World, custom Tupac-themed pinball machines and games, his iconic diamond-encrusted death row pendant, original artwork and sculptures, clothing, shoes, accessories, and even the furniture taken from his homes after his death. It was all there. It always had been. This wasn't just about missing files, it was a full-blown cover-up of priceless personal treasures buried in plain sight. And if this is what's finally coming out, imagine what's still hidden. Hit subscribe on Juicy Reel, you won't believe what's next. The truth was never that the estate lacked value, it was that millions in personal property had been hidden in plain sight. For years, estate executors were quietly keeping assets away from Tupac's family and the public. It wasn't just negligence, it looked like a calculated move. Through years of court battles, it became obvious. Materials were being returned to Amaru Entertainment from across the industry, piece by piece. From forgotten studios to private collections, people had been holding on to Tupac's legacy since 1996. And with every item returned, the estate's value shot up, exposing just how incomplete the original inventory really was. Then came the most damning accusation yet. Tupac Shakur's lawsuit blew the lid off everything. She accused Tom Wally of embezzling millions from Amaru Entertainment and withholding critical financial records. Her legal team argued that Wally had been using estate property for high-profile projects, like the Los Angeles Museum exhibit, without ever telling Tupac's family where the money was going. And then another bombshell dropped. Over 80 unreleased Death Row tracks still existed, never made public, never monetized, and completely missing from the 1996 estate report. All that music just sitting there for decades. Legal drama between Amaru Entertainment, Interscope Records, and Entertainment One had blocked release after release, but the material was always there. Always. After nearly 30 years of silence, lawsuits, police investigations, and family heartbreak, the smoke is finally clearing. And what's now clear? The real Tupac Amaru Shakur estate was far bigger, richer, and more powerful than they ever let on. Don't let this get buried again. Subscribe to Juicy Real and stay with us as we keep uncovering everything they tried to hide. This was never just about missing assets. This was about hidden wealth buried deep and systematically concealed for years, even from Tupac's own family. Now, material dating all the way back to Tupac's early 1990 sessions with Jesse and the Kids is finally starting to surface. That alone proves the estate held a massive archive that spanned his entire career, from his raw beginnings to his final days. But here's the kicker. The 1996 inventory only scratched the surface. What actually existed inside places like Starlight Studios, the Digital Underground sessions, and other private recording spots was so much more, and for years, it stayed locked away. Thanks to recent court wins, materials are finally being forced back into the hands of Amaru Entertainment. That includes game-changing tracks like Ghost and When Thugs Cry, both missing from official estate control for over a decade, and both part of the Entertainment One settlement that returned a treasure chest of unreleased music. So how did this archive even get so huge? It all comes back to Tupac's daily recording grind, especially during his time at the Wilshire apartment complex. He wasn't just dropping hits. He was creating non-stop, stacking track after track, night and day. The result, a treasure trove of unreleased art that was kept hidden for nearly 30 years. And now, it's finally being dragged into the light. Stay on top of every twist. Subscribe to Juicy Real now. Tupac's obsessive creativity at places like Death Row Studios led to hundreds of finished tracks, scattered across Los Angeles in production houses, studio vaults, and even private collections owned by collaborators. But the real shocker, the 2025 police document release blew the lid off just how widespread these materials actually were. While digging through evidence tied to the ongoing murder investigation, police uncovered documents and unreleased content, proving that key industry figures had been sitting on estate-related assets for decades. No paperwork, no accountability, just locked away legacy. Now, thanks to current estate lawsuits, the truth is finally surfacing. Court filings confirm what fans and family long suspected. The original 1996 inventory barely scratched the surface. The Tupac Amaru Shakur estate is now estimated to be worth $40 million, generated entirely from assets that already existed back then, but were ignored or hidden. And just when it seemed like everything had been found, another twist. DJ King Assassin revealed that even Dear Mama, Tupac's most beloved anthem, had unreleased original versions. One version even featured rapper Yo-Yo, a version that had never been released yet could be worth millions in licensing alone. Where was it hiding? Inside Tupac's personal storage units, rented across LA and completely overlooked in the original records. Unit 247 at a public storage on Ventura Boulevard was loaded with over 100 DAT tapes, some of them holding tracks the world still hasn't heard. Another unit, Unit 189, contained even more tapes, gear, and handwritten notes. They said there was nothing left to find, but they were wrong. More secrets are coming. Make sure you don't miss a beat. Subscribe to Juicy Real right now. Inside Quest Studios in Van Nuys, authorities discovered mixing boards worth hundreds of thousands, equipment left completely unaccounted for in the original estate files. These bombshell finds came months after the 1996 inventory had already been finalized, proving once again that the biggest pieces of Tupac's empire were left off the books. But it wasn't just music gear that was missing. Tupac's business deals kept making money long after his death, and none of it was properly tied to the estate. His publishing company, Ghetto Gospel Music, owned rights to songs by other artists. His production company, Euthanasia Incorporated, had ongoing contracts for movie soundtracks. Together, these represented millions in future earnings, completely left out of early valuations. Then came the international paper trail. European distributors still owed royalties from overseas album sales. Japanese companies held merchandise licensing agreements. These deals didn't just disappear after Tupac's death. They kept generating serious income, yet none of it was reflected in the original numbers. It was as if an entire global operation had been hidden in plain sight. And here's where it all changed: the digital era. Since 1996, technology has skyrocketed the value of everything Tupac left behind. What was once sitting on dusty shelves became gold mines through streaming, YouTube, and social media. Videos and songs with barely any commercial use back then are now worth millions. The Coachella hologram performance in 2012 alone brought in massive licensing fees for Amaru Entertainment. Movies, documentaries, museum exhibits, all of them continue to cash in on the very assets that were always part of the estate, just never properly acknowledged. Today, individual songs sell for hundreds of thousands, and entire posthumous albums like Are You Still Down and Remember Me continue to generate millions in revenue. So no, this story was never about missing paperwork. It's about intellectual property being quietly buried, undervalued, and withheld for nearly 3 decades. But now the legal battles have finally forced transparency. After 29 years, the truth is undeniable. Tupac Amaru Shakur didn't die broke. He left behind one of the most valuable artistic legacies in the history of hip-hop, an archive so vast, so powerful, it took nearly 3 decades of legal warfare just to drag it into the light. The same estate that started with just $105,000 in a Citibank account is now worth tens of millions. And not because of cash, cars, or houses, but because of the unreleased music, the vision, and the art that Tupac poured into every track he recorded. From All Eyes on Me to the Don Killuminati, the 7-Day Theory, to hundreds of unheard songs still making noise today, the Tupac Amaru Shakur estate is not just valuable. It's one of the most systematically hidden treasures in entertainment history, and don't sleep on it. Subscribe to Juicy Reel and stay locked in. More truth is coming.